seem to be in a prime time slot to do videos, so I'm going to try to knock another one out. I've studied Chinese philosophy. I think it's very interesting. I took 2 classes on it, but I'm going to be talking about ancient Chinese philosophy, because I took a contemporary one too. But anyway, ancient Chinese philosophy seems to me to be very into order. I mean, people who talk about Chinese philosophy would probably use more flowery terms like harmony, but it's order. They're really obsessed with order. So, for instance, Europeans at the time saw good and evil in terms of commands from a divine being. Good is what the divine being says is good, bad is what the divine being says is bad. But in China at the time, the idea was that good is what maintains order and the status quo. Bad is what causes chaos. And it seems pretty authoritarian to me, except it has a caveat to keep it from being completely authoritarian, which is that there's the idea in Chinese philosophy that monarchs could potentially be agents of disorder and chaos, and if a monarch starts doing evil, bad things, that they will lose their divine right to rule, because Chinese philosophy had the same kind of divine right of kings thing, except it wasn't through a divine being, it was through some other supernatural thing that's super hard to understand. They call it the mandate of heaven, but it's pretty much divine right. It's just so slightly different. So anyway, yeah. They said that the rulers had divine right, and that if a ruler acted super evilly and disorderly and chaotic, he would lose the divine right and would go to a rebel who would overthrow him, and now he would have the divine right. But it's still slightly authoritarian in the sense that it implies that rulers have a divine right to begin with, rather than having the consent of the governed, which is why it's always difficult to judge really ancient thought through a modern lens, because ancient thought's always going to look kind of silly through a modern lens. Like, almost, it's hard to look at old thoughts without seeing things that are a bit cringeworthy. But anyway, yeah. So a plus side to this order obsession was that society wasn't very chaotic and everyone had their place. The downside is that it very likely led to misogyny becoming a problem, because the idea with order is everyone has their place, so there's very defined gender roles, and if you break out of those gender roles, you're creating disorder, and disorder is bad. So men and women who start breaking out of their gender roles are causing disorder. Which also, I'm speaking more generally here. I'm not saying every single person in China at that time was reading these philosophy books and thought like this. So I'm speaking generally about the ideas at the time there. And by the way, there isn't really European philosophy and Chinese philosophy, and there isn't different philosophies. There's just one philosophy. It's just these particular communities in the past were separated from each other, and hence developed their own thought at the time. So when I say Chinese philosophy, I don't mean they're doing philosophy. They're doing a different kind of philosophy. Philosophy is all the same, just that when you have people not communicating with each other, you get very different enclaves of thought. In the same way that there's no such thing as Eastern medicine or Western medicine. There's just medicine. So yeah, they're very into order. The second thing that they were into that I really liked, though, was Wu Wei, which usually gets translated as effortless action, which I think is it's flowery sounding, but it's just misleading, I think. In fact, in general, I thought that when people translate Chinese philosophy into English for Americans, they always make it sound way more flowery than it is, to the point to where it causes confusion. They use harmony instead of order, they use effortless action instead of what I think would be a better translation, which would be second nature. The idea with Wu Wei, from what I understand, is that you want to get, and it's an implication of order. It's an order in one's own life. But the order in one's life is to make your life so efficient and so well done that everything is second nature to you. If you don't know what second nature means, you know how when you spread toast, when you spread butter on toast or something, or you cut something, or you do something that you've done like 1,000 times, you don't think about it. You don't have to think about it because you've just gotten so good at it that it's second nature to you. The idea with Wu Wei is to get your entire life like that. Get your entire life to the point where you don't have to think about every little thing you're doing. In fact, you don't have to think about what you're doing throughout the day because it's become second nature because your life is just so awesome. So that's the idea with Wu Wei. Make your whole life second nature. And I suppose the idea there could be too that once your entire life is second nature and you don't have to think about every little thing you're doing out throughout the day, then your mind might be free to think about philosophy and art and cool stuff that's not mundane, because your life is so efficient that you now have like mental free space for the higher endeavors. So yeah, in summary, ancient Chinese philosophy, from what I understand, which by the way, this is a very, very oversimplification, this video, and I'm leaving out entire schools of thought that were really big at the time, but I don't have time to mention. But basically, the main idea was that order was good, disorder is bad, and Wu Wei is how you get to personal order. And maybe I'll try to do a video about Taoism sometime.